Redemption! That's the first word that came to my mind when the news of Game of Thrones sequels dropped. It took the internet by storm, and for us fans, it was a glimmer of hope. After almost 6 years, we're finally on the brink of getting the answers to the questions that have plagued us all these years. No matter how much we tried to make peace with the damned and controversial finale of the 8 years long phenomenon, deep down, we all wanted to go back to Westeros and dig up justifications. Yes, House of the Dragon did quench the thirst for fantasy lovers, and the trailer of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms looked promising, but it's almost impossible to get Jon Snow or Arya Stark out of our minds. And finally, the moment is here. After a couple prequels and spin-offs, Game of Thrones is ready to give it another shot. And here's a list of 7 things we can expect, apart from the fact that we're gonna bind our hearts in hope again, only to see our favorite characters die. But okay, just gimme Jon Snow and the title track I can die for. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. J.R.R. Martin himself confirmed the follow-ups. We all know that after Season 5, the television show began to heavily diverge from Martin's published novel series, A Song of Ice and Fire, which served as the foundation of Game of Thrones. The show outpaced the timeline of the books, and honestly, it was majorly effed up. Thankfully, at the 2025 Iceland Noir Festival, Martin himself confirmed that a Game of Thrones sequel is in the works. His exact words were, "a sequel or two," but the most comforting factor is that Martin would, in all probability, be way more involved in this than he was in the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, where he was out of the loop after Season 4. Initially, he was extremely active in writing and reading scripts, giving his inputs on casting, but over time, he grew estranged from the show when he focused on his long-delayed Next Thrones book, The Winds of Winter. However, since he himself announced the follow-ups, it's safe to say the showrunners would not repeat the same mistake. With Martin in the house, we can definitely expect the show to return to its glory days. Also, while talking about the sequel, Martin also mentioned a prequel series on Aegon the Conqueror, aka Aegon Targaryen I. It might be a movie or movies. I wouldn't mind watching the dragons and snow clad on the big screen. Frankly, the bigger the screen, the better Game of Thrones feels. But then again, I guess we would all miss the rightly paced character and story build-up. In October 2024, Warner Bros. Studios confirmed that a Game of Thrones sequel movie was in production. But since then, there have been few reports on it. Now, with Martin's comment, especially about how we might get more than one sequel, it seems like Warner Bros. Is cooking up one of the following projects. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Warner Bros. Has been quietly developing one or more projects set in Westeros, but as of yet, we have no information about the director or cast associated with it. However, the studio is reportedly intent on bringing Martin back. While Warner Bros. Tries to play the secret card, HBO spilled the beans and confirmed it. Its CEO, Casey Bloys, stated, "We'll read the scripts along with them. I think it could be fun and interesting. I mean, that's the point of development, you see. Is there a story that's worthy of being in theaters and a big spectacle? I think it would be fun." Connect the dots with how Martin mentioned that he's working on the projects with other people. Yeah, we can sense where it's heading. The sequel won't remake Season 8. If anyone asks what's worse than a breakup, tell them it's the last season of Game of Thrones. The ending broke our hearts irreparably, and as much as we would like to wipe it from our memories or would like a complete redo, it's not on the cards. Firstly, Martin cleared the air that the current focus is more on prequels and spin-offs, but threw in the sequel bit as a treat. And like starving dogs, we took it. Even if the makers are working on Game of Thrones sequels, either as a series or films, there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that they'd take on the painstaking task of correcting the nightmare that Season 8 was. So if you're thinking the sequel would draw everything on a clean slate and help you put those horrible nights behind you, it won't. As far as the climax is concerned, we're doomed to have to accept it for what it was. Moreover, since Martin didn't say anything about completing his novels, titled The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring, a Game of Thrones sequel, it's unlikely that the main narrative will continue, at least not anytime soon. The sequel might be centered around Jon or Arya. Just 2 months before House of the Dragon premiered, HBO hinted that a spin-off revolving around Jon Snow was in early development. At the end of Season 8, Jon headed beyond the wall with the Free Folk, and this show could have shed light on his life after he found his true lineage, the emotional baggage he carries after killing the woman he loved, and most importantly, what he did in the extreme north once the White Walker threat was over. No, seriously, would we ever know what on earth Jon would do there when the realm needed protection from nothing? Kit Harington was actively working with HBO to realize this spin-off, but as of 2024, there's been sad news. The Jon Snow spin-off has been shelved indefinitely. We know what that means. It's been effectively cancelled. It's unlikely that the sequels Martin referred to are related to the Jon Snow series that was paused. Yet, since no details about the upcoming ventures have been divulged, we can at least naively dream that Harington would return as Jon Snow in the future, even if as a part of a larger ensemble. Similarly, an Arya-focused series has also been a fan demand. We have zero idea what the young girl did after she sailed to discover what's west of Westeros, and and given that there are talks of the next parts now, Arya Stark would be a major contender for a post-Game of Thrones timeline story. Because let's be real, we really want to know what's west of Westeros. The sequel could pick up right where Season 8 left off. The ending of Season 8 was so darn rushed that the narrative felt suffocated, and scared viewers, for whom Game of Thrones was nothing less than a religion. The aftermath was shrouded in doubt. Why was Bronn made Master of Coin? Or why couldn't the Iron Islands free themselves along with the North? That's just the basic ones that were right in front of our faces. Obviously, there are deeper questions, particularly about the Stark siblings. A future storyline based on Jon or Arya would inevitably lead audiences to experience Bran's life as the King of Westeros. Oh, it hurts to even say that. And Sansa's role as the Queen of the North. If a sequel picks up from where Game of Thrones ended, all these plot points would find the much-needed breathing space. Perhaps we might see the Iron Islands waging a war for their autonomy, or why a sellsword was given such a high position, except for favoritism and lack of choice. There are many directions the sequel could take, which can somewhat rectify the blasphemous fate the showrunners wrote for the characters. Even if the sequel is set long in the future, it might remove the blemishes the show incurred by concluding the character arcs, which hopefully would be better than a 5th grade student's essay. There might be a whole new cast. Considering there's more than one sequel in the works, it's entirely possible that the project would bring in brand new faces in this world. Furthermore, since we don't even know what Martin has in store for his unfinished books, it's impossible to know how many new characters have the chance to crop up. My best bet is that Martin won't follow the trajectory of the established characters, given their destinies have already been imprinted in our minds. He might somehow change the course of the storylines and introduce fresh people rather than trying to rectify what's already been spoiled. Seems like that's the only way he can manage to keep his novel series an unadulterated gem. Moreover, the creators of the future of Game of Thrones ventures would also want a fresh start. No matter how much we want proper closure, it's unlikely that they would put their fingers in a pie that's already gone bad. Thus, the chances of seeing completely new people in the familiar setting are much higher than the chances of any of the leading cast from the series returning. Honestly, it's not a bad idea. Let Game of Thrones be the Roman Empire of television series and embrace whatever the creators throw at us. At least now they know what not to do. The sequel is not happening anytime soon. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is scheduled for an early release in 2026, and a 3rd season of House of the Dragon is set for late next year. House of the Dragon is already set to air for at least 2 more seasons, with the potentially final one being set for 2028. HBO also announced that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has been renewed for a 2nd season, which is expected to hit the screens in 2027. Let's not forget, apart from these 2, multiple other prequels, maybe 5 or 6 according to Martin, are also in development. Ideally, Martin and HBO have their hands full for the next 3 years, so the logical guess is that a Game of Thrones sequel won't drop at least before 2028. That means 2 more years of living with the misery and not knowing what the heck happened to the show. That said, it's possible that the executives would acknowledge fan reactions and the fact that we lost our shit, knowing that there might be light at the end of the tunnel and release the new film or show sooner than expected. Fingers crossed. Marvelous verdict. Okay, that was one exciting ride. Just 2 words put together. Game of Thrones and its sequel sent fans to Cloud 7. That too on a dragon's back. Both the prequels and sequels are desperate attempts by HBO to rewrite the history of the show. And honestly, we're loving this desperation. Probably just like how Harry Potter found a new life after decades, Game of Thrones will as well. The network's patience may finally allow the makers to fix what Season 8 broke. However, we can't deny that HBO is making a gamble at this point, but it seems like a calculated one, where Martin would control the steering. Hopefully, we don't drown in disappointment anymore, and for what it's worth, we might actually get the experience we deserved. Let us know which storyline you want to see resolved the most in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, let's be happy that winter is finally coming. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.